That one had some
Boom.
depth. That was some depth to that open.
Heck yeah. Going in.
What is it tonight?
This is a tasty little, it's called Hazy Little IPA from Sierra Nevada, which I believe is in Asheville, North Carolina, or somewhere near there. But I like a lot of Sierra Nevada brews.
Is it cold in Richmond? It's getting cold here in Louisville.
No, I think it feels great, honestly. But whatever. It's like
too
50s.
Cold. Yeah, it's like in the 50s.
Like
It rained all day today. It sucked.
I'm down.
Well, welcome everyone to the Aged Out podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Mike Fantini, and with me as always is
Evan Worrell.
And we have an awesome guest today, actually, who will let introduce himself here soon. But before we get to that, make sure you hit subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, follow on Facebook and Instagram for updates. Check out the reaction videos, check out the clip videos we're uploading on YouTube, all that good stuff. And patreon.com/agedoutpodcast for any financial support you want to throw our way. And speaking of that kind of thing, if you haven't heard, we've officially partnered with Lone Star Percussion, and they've given us a discount code of just Aged Out. It'll be in the video or podcast description, and it'll
No
give
space in between.
Yeah, no spaces. And it'll give you $10 off any order of $50 or more. And Evan framed that on our last episode in a way that I hadn't thought about before of basically if you buy 3 pairs of drumsticks, you're going to be just about $50. It's almost like a buy 2, get 1 free of marching sticks. So it's a pretty sweet deal. Want to save some money, go check them out, lonestarpercussion.com. And now that that's out of the way, Evan, you want to take it and we'll get rolling.
Sure. Absolutely. So yeah, Mike mentioned have an awesome guest today, a dude that really we've just met through passing in the small social circle that is the marching arts, the percussion activity, whatever you want to call it. A guy that I've met a couple times in person, just had some conversation with here and there, but just seemed like a super chill, genuine guy. So we were like, heck yeah, we want to have this guy on. Reached out to him, and he was gracious enough to join us and spare some time to sit down with us. And without further ado, welcome Paul Nalesnik. Did I say that right?
Yes, dude.
Oh.
Nice.
I was actually super worried because I was like, man, usually I ask people to pronounce it before we started, but I was like leaning into it and I was like, all right, we're just going for it.
Normally people give me Nalesnik because of the spelling, but yeah, man, thanks so much for having me, man. I'm stoked.
Yeah, I felt like I was gonna lean into like the slur of it, not like Nalesnik, like Nalesnik. I don't know, just in my head, I was like, that seems more. What is that? What's the origin?
It's Polish and
Okay.
a little bit French, and actually means crepes.
Crepes. I love crepes. Those are like the really thin pancakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Shout out Talladega Nights. But yeah, man, thanks for taking the time. You're up in New Jersey, right?
Yes, sir.
That's where you're from?
Yep.
Nice. East Coast, man. I feel like we have so many friends from the East Coast. I don't know how that happened, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the marching community out here, it's very tightly knit. In terms of like the people that actually go on and march, world class, kind of few and far between in my experience. So, but yeah.
I don't know. It seems pretty few and far between here in middle America, Kentucky as well. So I don't.
True.
You can probably, in terms of marching drummers, you can probably count on 2 hands the number of people that have marched in a top 12 drum line in the past decade.
Yeah,
From Kentucky.
decade,
From
for sure.
Kentucky.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen very often.
But yeah, man, you've got obviously some unique background and experiences and ensembles that you've been in that we'll get into later. But as always, we want to give you the kind of opportunity just to explain how you got into music or drums in general, kind of your path, and we'll catch up and along the way, just kind of riff off of that. So take it away, man.
Yeah, awesome. With I guess the beginning of my drumming career, it was all just drum set and Blink-182 and Sum 41, just learning all the tracks, beating the crap out of the drums. And I guess there came a point where my mom was just a little annoyed at it, and she was like, you know what, this kid's gonna get good at drums. So she scheduled this drum lesson for me, and the incentive was a drive to the skate park because I really wanted to go to the skate park, a bunch of miles away. She's like, I'll take you only if you go to this drum lesson on Thursday. And I was like, so bummed. I was like, whatever, you know. I went there and it was phenomenal. I absolutely loved it. You know, there are 2 drum sets in the room, a bunch of pads, and like the rudiment sheet up on the wall. And from the very beginning, man, my first drum teacher, Matt Lewis, he really set me up to understand the fundamentals and appreciate them. You know, we literally worked through the top 40 rudiments, and he had like a creative lesson plan for each one. And, you know, moving closer to high school, I was getting, you know, closer to that age, and he was actually friends with the quad tech at my high school. So they found out that I was interested, and I was going to be enrolled at that high school because my grandparents were custodians at that high school. So
Heck yeah.
I could have gone to, you know, the public school in my town, which had like a really small music program, no marching band, but I was really lucky to be able to go to this private Catholic school with a great marching program. You know,
What was the name of that school?
Immaculata High School.
Immaculata. That's a mouthful.
And it was an amazing program, man. All the teachers there were super motivated and inspiring. And, you know, I was really set up from the start. So I got private lessons from Neil in the summer leading up to the audition. And, you know, I actually made quads freshman year. I think I was like one of the only ones, or the only one to do that. And I was like,
how tall were you your freshman year? Like, there's no way
I was gonna
I
ask.
could have even carried quads.
Have enough drums, so they like had older like sets from like the 90s, and they like Frankensteined a set for me, and like the one drum 7.5 inches out from the spock, and like the 2 was like a little further that way, and like the connector pieces were PVC pipe.
Go get some brackets from Lowe's, and here we go.
So hit up Lone Star, but
yeah, right.
no, you know, I came to really like get attached to obviously the program because it was we had like a huge drum line. That year, my freshman year, we won Group 6 national champions percussion. So we got like 3rd overall, but we actually like won the overall score for percussion, which was awesome. And just that experience alone was like super motivating. And then the next year,
Group 6 mean like, is it divided by like size, band size or something?
Yeah, and that's the largest size. So it was like we were competing against some really good bands, and even like some of the Group 4 or 5 bands, like Dartmouth was in there, Cheshire, I forget the name of it, but some really awesome programs, and we ended up getting the highest score, which is like kind of crazy.
That's awesome.
And then in 2007, I practiced my butt off to be section leader, and you know it was the same 3 guys, us quads. For 2 years, you know, and we literally became best friends and were nonstop drumming. That year, you know, Phantom came to my school to rehearse, and I just completely fell in love with drum corps. You know, watching that drum line, literally.
I believe in another interview you said it was Phantom 07, right?
Phantom 07, yeah.
Dude, that's probably, I've said this before, that's probably like the best example I could give someone of what I would want a battery to be tuned like all 100%. Around.
100%. And
like every time I watch those videos or remember seeing that, I was just like, this sounds amazing.
That's a bold statement. I'm going to have to go back and check those out. It's been a while.
Yes, there are some like CD quality recordings out there of that line. But
dude, in the concrete there.
Yes.
It's just so sick.
But imagine, you know, being a complete fanboy of drum corps, you know, I'm like raring to go, and they show up at my high school 9 a.m. and I'm there like sitting Indian style, just like mouth open every second of the day. Like I watched them rehearse all day, and the next day they went to Giant Stadium and got to see him perform at Giant Stadium. And I was completely hooked after that.
Yeah. Dude, that used to be such a great show. It was at Meadowlands before they...
Yeah.
Dude, that was such a fun stadium to perform in.
I know. And even like in high school, there was all that, like the Yamaha Cup hype and all that stuff. And fans, it was like all the allure in the world. But yeah, so that next year, I really, really dug my heels in and tried to max it out, you know, for the high school band. And before a show, I was always watching Neil like tune and drum on the drums. And, you know, he was like, hey, I got some time. You want to learn this lick? And he taught me the United 2008 quad break. So Neil was marching United at the time in 2008 and 2009. And he taught me this thing, and it was like, hey, you should totally go audition. Like, So
like
my
a
senior
junior
year
in high school or something?
Yeah, I was a junior in high school. So
Sick.
yeah, the end of that year I auditioned. Or I guess the beginning of my senior year I auditioned. And yeah, I marched United 2009 and 2010. And
Dude,
after
those were some pretty good groups. I actually went back when I was doing some like research on you and started watching some of the videos. Of course, it's funny anytime you go back and look at just some of the design of those shows and how far it's come in the last decade. But man, those kids could play. Like I was like, oh, there's Eric Carr and like a bunch of other dudes that we know: T-Gas, Travis, Dan Shag in the snare line, Dan wearing a hoodie that's like 2 sizes too small, that's pink and fluorescent. I'm like,
I remember that.
That was really an awesome experience, man. I wouldn't trade it for the world. Like you said, the show design, it was just like, what can we fit in this musical phrase? All the flams, all the vocabulary in the world, but maybe not the most tasteful. But it was like really challenging and difficult to play accurately, especially at that level. Being in high school and then showing up at United, it was just the first full ensemble rep. I was just, whoa, what is happening? Like
whole different world.
We're all in time right now, and we're all driving, and we're all like playing clean first rep. Like this is crazy.
Yeah, I'm sure that's just like pretty crazy as a high schooler to be competing in independent world. I mean, that's a pretty large jump and like a standard of excellence that's you're going to. So
I was really lucky in that I got to experience that adrenaline and that love for performing. And I wanted to do drum corps, and I auditioned at Jersey Surf, and I made it, but I was not ready physically, and I injured myself a couple weeks into spring training and ended up leaving that summer. So 2010,
would that have been 2010 summer?
That was 2009 summer.
Okay.
So 2010 I took off, and I think that summer I transcribed like literally every single Paul Rennick book from like 06, 07, 08, and then that year 2010 I would like YouTube upload like what's the latest video, and I literally transcribed snare, quad, bass part for opener, drum solo, closer in my notebook.
Dang.
I was so meticulous about the look of it and everything. And
did you ever show that to Paul or tell him?
I told him, I think, one time, but it was I still have that notebook, and I have like Rhythm X licks in there, Blue Coat licks, just like all the stuff that intrigued me, like the MCM 2009 snare break. I remember it was really cool.
Oh yeah, from the Requiem show.
I just randomly started transcribing a ton, and then I got to Rutgers University to study percussion, and there I actually got a private Facebook message from Matt Penland, who was going to be the section leader at Vanguard in 2011. And he just marched 2009 and 10 at Phantom. And, obviously I was just like, what? This person is Facebook messaging me to go to California, wondering if I'm interested in marching for Paul Rennick. Like, what is happening right now? And apparently he reached out to my friend who was marching cadets already, and he was my roommate. So Andrew Urbano, he was like, hey, I have a roommate, and he's like literally a Paul Rennick freak fanboy, and like described every lick and can play everything that he wrote the last like 4 years. So you should reach out to him.
That's probably like, yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah, right. And then I reached out to my mom. I was like, hey, can you like buy me a plane ticket? Saying, what the heck are you saying? Why?
To California. What?
I know.
Isn't there somewhere closer?
Dude, I was thinking about cadets. I was thinking about what was the other drum corps I was thinking about? Mainly cadets, but I think after Maddie reached out to me, I was just like, oh, okay, I might actually belong there. So I went there March 2011 and 12, and then got injured in 13. I have like De Quervain's tendinophysitis and carpal tunnel in my right hand, and lost feeling in my arm. Got like really
that's not good.
Full.
No bueno.
Yeah, in 2013, so I had to leave. And, at that time, I actually was an undergrad, and I got the job as a director and arranger of the drumline. That position opened up, and I applied for it.
Rutgers?
At Rutgers. So, like,
nice.
I had my 1 year of experience from Vanguard in 2011, and I went into the interview and just went for it and got the job. And, I was designing for a Big Ten collegiate drumline. So, there I really kind of honed in my approach to writing and teaching in my own way. And I guess from there, I got noticed enough to be able to go teach Crossman in the summer of 2014. And then I took some more time after that to kind of focus more on my classical studies. And, I was really, really invested in Rutgers drumline at the time. I had some like really serious players in that line, some cadets, some Crown kids, and a bunch of DCA, players that really cared about the activity. So I wanted to hook them up with some really awesome music and instruction. So cared a lot about that. And then, leading out of that experience, my last year was 2016. 2017, I got approached to be the caption head and arranger for United Percussion.
That's pretty sick. Is that like where they just have like a meeting of the stars aligning, like somebody's going out and like, oh, Paul's like came through here. He's an alumni of the program. He obviously cares about it. Like we should how did that kind of happen?
Well, honestly, I think it was the work that I did at Rutgers Drumline and at Crossman. I kind of showed that I had the ability to carry out that responsibility. And, Chad Moore, the director, who was teaching and wrote the book. Esquire. When I, when I marched, he was the guy, he was teaching us and writing the book. So, he asked me to come on, and I had no idea what I was doing. Great learning experience. But I also that summer, I ended up teaching cadets as well. I was at Rutgers band camp, and I just got a call from Tom Unks, like, what? I look at my iPhone, like, Tom Unks. Why is he calling me?
I have made it.
Spoken to this man. But I ended up going to teach the cadets as well. And then, also did Caballeros. So I was writing for all these different groups at once. So I did cadets, cabs, and United for 17, 18, 19. And then 19, I started writing for Jersey Surf. That was my first summer writing for Surf. And
that is pretty. That's all pretty incredible. I feel like the Rutgers thing, like writing for a drumline like that has a mix of like obviously you want some substance, but also just with like some jams would be such a fun experience to like. All right, I don't have to try to make this like the craziest thing and check all these boxes for this competitive circuit. I can really kind of mess around and make it feel good and make it sound good and make it work orchestrally with like the music as far as much from an orchestra standpoint as like a marching percussion ensemble can. But that seems like a good way to just like transition.
Dude, I had so many different scenarios, compositional scenarios, whether it be like the high school band that I was arranging for, or, the cadets quad arounds and some breaks, some snare breaks and stuff like that. Or like, with Rutgers specifically, it was, you have your pregame, like, thing, and then you have your groovy cadence. Then you have your like stand grooves, offense, defense. Then you have your halftime shows. We did 6 halftime shows for the whole year, and we did a different show for every home game, and each one was themed. So like, we had like a blackout game where everyone wore black and it was all hype. So we did like Painted Black and Jay-Z the Black Album. So I had all these different genres.
Hell yeah.
That would have been fun to write
genres, too. Right? To like compose to. And I guess I learned really through trial and error how to emulate the musical style through orchestration. Like, you're writing to be like a drum set, you know what I mean, in these charts. But you also want it to be intriguing and clever enough for the individual player to want to learn it and be able to learn it efficiently. So that was like a really, really great learning experience prior to starting to write at United, because when I got to United, it was high level virtuosity, but like, you're on the WGI stage now. So everything's got to be musically appropriate, but also kind of progressive in a way.
Yeah.
So it gave me the confidence to be able to compose what came naturally to me, because I was put in so many different scenarios prior to that.
And I'm sure at that point too, I'm sure at that point from just arranging different things, you kind of get a feel for what you have in your brain versus how that translates to paper versus how that translates to real life.
Yeah, and
as
how
far as like
they're going to handle it, right? And like how they're going to, because I didn't even figure out how to do the repeat function until my last year at Rutgers. So I would I would make an MP3 file where like every note was labeled as the dynamic, and then an aesthetic file where I would just like do the actual repeat symbol in every bar. It was like so tedious. And when I found out that there was a function on the keypad that just you could put as a repeat and it played back for you, my mind was blown.
Those shortcuts, baby.
I just became so much more efficient at all that stuff. But yeah, after all that, I ended up wanting to kind of pursue a different artistic kind of purpose, and teach in a different setting with my friends, and have not low pressure, but less pressure, on me. There was
less responsibility at times.
There was a lot on my shoulders at all those groups, and I wanted to kind of see what I can contribute to a group that already has their style established, and so I ended up going to GMU and to Crown and joining that team, and it's been really cool to kind of see it all come together, and I feel like I've had a lot of chances to feel like that full circle, kind of like that meaning.
Back again with these dudes.
Yeah, exactly. I
mean, you started your independent world marching career at United, where Travis and Dan are. And now here you are teaching with Travis and Dan at GMU and Crown, and you're all just like, hey, what's up?
It's funny, like my first year at United, I was like very reserved and very quiet, and like, I was 15, 16 years old, so I was just kind of hanging with the quads, sleeping over. And the next year I was like, dude, these guys are cool, man. I'm hanging with the snare drummers, like I've made friends with Dan and Travis and Tom and all those guys. I went to go stay in Philly, and I was drumming with them like nonstop. You can ask
goons.
It was like two snare drummers and Paul, like always. I always just wanted to play with the snares because I loved the interplay. I loved the feeling of like that aggressiveness that they played with, that confidence. And I gravitated towards that. So yeah, really, really happy that it turned out in the way that, now we're able to go on the other side and.
Dude, I can attest to that. My last year indoor, I stood in between Dan and Tom. Tom split the center of the 10-man line with me, and then Dan was on my other side. So I was like, well, got to have my stuff together.
I know. These guys were marching, all these places, and they were just so chill and down to earth. And, I think United had its own identity, that like East Coast grit that just like we're going to come up and just.
No, they definitely do. Their snare line forever, since I've seen them, has always, like, I feel like played with a chip on their shoulder a little bit.
Totally.
Like the level of aggression, the density of notes written for them, they go after it. And that's something I've always respected about them.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that's kind of like the rundown of like my first scene kid drum set lesson to now, I guess.
That's a pretty healthy list of experience and just like different culture. I won't say culture, but I don't know, perspectives versus like the teaching East Coast, Paul Rennick. I guess we'll take that time too to just like back up and kind of like dissect some of these things. So you spent 2 summers with Vanguard, and I'm sure that a lot of people like wonder like what's going on out there, like what's the secret sauce, like this that. I guess just kind of like it's been a little while since 2011, 2012. But what are some things that you noticed that were kind of different about the way that Paul approached things, or the way that you guys rehearsed, or the way that they talked about the music or the beats or the arounds or that sort of stuff?
Yeah, that's
Can I pause you all for a second? Can we go even earlier than that and just start with the audition process as like a deep dive? Like, is there anything unique they do throughout? I know BD has a pretty unique audition process. Is his audition process and the way he runs it kind of just like run of the mill? And then from there, we can go to like technique and rehearsal stuff and all that kind of stuff.
Totally. Yeah. For me, it was really Well, first of all, that was just an incredibly loaded question, so I'll do my best.
Yeah, it was very vague and very yeah.
But going out there, I kind of had prepared in that I was ready for the style of music, kind of what he's written over the past couple of years. Prior to that, so I had I kind of knew what to expect musically, and I knew most of like the exercise program and like maybe what they played, but really it was a completely new experience for me in terms of the audition, showing up, literally on the other side of the country alone, and just kind of being challenged more in terms of the mentality and my musicianship, because a lot of the stuff there is, auditions are kind of by rote, where he'll take a simple exercise, flip it, reverse it off the left, change the order, and make you engage your mind, all while making good sounds and fitting into the ensemble. And I feel like he does a really great job at setting an expectation musically, just by the environment that's set in the rehearsal. I think the rehearsal etiquette and the discipline in those groups, the respect for the process is just there when you show up. He treats you like a pro and you feel like a pro. As far as the approach to, the drum and the technique, I get asked this a lot, and I really do feel like it comes down to understanding how motion affects sound and how it how the player can use kind of movement and the mentality behind the order of the music to make good sounds and to agree on the phrase. I think musicianship and rhythmic integrity, musical direction is like first and foremost in a polyrhythmic drum line. I think your understanding of your role in the ensemble and your role in the score, I think, is super paramount. And
I was just thinking that. Well, I've thought that before, just because when I notice Vanguard videos or just rehearsals, it seems like the drum line plays with the pit a lot more than like some other groups that I've been in or watched. Yeah. Not even like just like on a, like we did have percussion ensemble like when I was at Crown, but like we were always like on the move pretty much always. Right. Like we hardly ever arced up behind the pit. It's like, all right, let's play this phrase. But it seems like Vanguard or Phantom, Rennick in general, they do that a lot just to get that feel of like, this is what the front's doing. Like, you guys need to know what's going on. This is what the battery's doing. You guys need to know what's going on.
Right. And he'll literally teach the music as a full ensemble, and you'll know exactly what musical line in the front ensemble you're mimicking or you're supporting, or, are you the ostinato to a feature? Are you kind of developing rhythmic interest as this, front ensemble rhythm is being kind of morphed and evolved? You have an understanding musically of like what your context is in the orchestration, so that as the player, you approach the playing like that. There's a certain selflessness to how you play. You're not just going for broke every single note you play. You're not maxing it out. And that was like half of what
East Coast.
My first year, it was like, Paul, play softer. Paul, play softer. Why are you playing that release that loud? Paul, play softer. I had no idea that the sticks and the motion kind of could do all the work for me. I think as far as how, like you said, the full ensemble rehearsals and everything, I think, I can't speak totally to why that's the case, but I think I remember hearing him talk about, being a Broadway set drummer, and you have your book that, that the score is set, everyone's playing the same music, and you have like a set amount of shows that you got to play, and what about the performance psychology is going to be able to get you to perform that at the highest level every single time, and I think being able to stay calm, cool, collected, and focused for the entirety of the production, is why, they do those full ensemble run-throughs and those, standstill run-throughs, just so that the performer knows how to pace themselves both musically and just emotionally throughout the production. Like, can you maintain your level of excellence for 12 minutes? He literally makes you do the run-through over and over again to the point where, that amount of time is comfortable for you, performing. You're not like doing 2 counts plus 2 counts plus 2 bars. Okay, now A to B. Okay, now A to C. Okay, now the whole thing. Like, you have a lot more understanding of like the continuity of the music and how you contribute to the energy of the score, throughout.
That makes so much sense. Because I don't know. I've talked to kids too before about, if you guys learn to think about things the same way, then you'll start to approach it the same way, and it's going to increase the likelihood that you play it the same way. If we're all thinking, all right, this phrase, make sure we're coming in here, like the hands are feeling like this, we're thinking about this on the brain, and like it's way more of a mental thing just to make sure that you're on the same page. So that I mean, it seems so simple, but yet hearing you explain, it's like, man, you get good at doing run-throughs by doing run-throughs.
And
don't get me wrong though, man. We would literally go like, okay, on the move, okay, stand still. On the move, on the move, on the move, stand still. On the move, on the move. And it would be like incredibly tiring. And he knew how to kind of put the stamina to the test, and I feel like when we fixed stuff or when we broke stuff down, it was in a smaller, more focused context. That way, when we then applied it to the full run through, we had all of that repetition, all of that retained at a much higher percentage, because we're going back to then applying it to a run through. We know how to apply whatever fixes are necessary, to the book. But I think, another thing is like everything that is written, everything that is on the page is so musically appropriate. I don't think that there is any scenario in terms of orchestration that Paul Rennick wouldn't be able to compose something clever and appropriate and stylistic within. I think there's this ability for him to really be able to compose what is musically appropriate and intriguing and clever, but all in a way that, generates an emotional response from the audience. You know what I mean? Whether it be like building rhythmic interest at the end of a phrase, or how, certain colors of the battery ensemble support what's going on with the full core. Everything has a musical purpose, has intent, and you as a player, you understand that. That's all up.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. My bad. But I was just going to say that just what you were just talking about reminded me of a video. We were talking about '07. Somebody, I think it was actually a friend of ours, Dan Schmidt, had taken, and I have these recordings in my Dropbox, but taken those videos of that '07, like opener, drum break, closer from the lot videos, and he dubbed them over the horn book to where you can hear the horn book, but it's way less prominent than the battery book. But just to hear it like overlaid and fit, you're just like, this is just like,
it's next level,
so tasty.
And that's
the
one thing. Like you said, his writing fits and is so interesting, and that's what I've always appreciated about him as a teacher and an arranger. And it's just very rarely when watching his groups am I not entertained. They could be playing like some of the simplest stuff, and it's probably why they win a lot, because everything's there for a purpose. Everything interacts really well and intelligently in the right way. And there's very few lulls when you watch even just their lots, like when the front's not even around, just the battery playing. It's the interplay between the 3 battery sections, and it's just, and on a different note, before we get too far away from
Mike.
4, my bad. But before we get too far away from
bro.
it, you mentioned you all did a crap ton of just run-throughs on the standstill and on the field. That's something, that's like a theme that I'm hearing more and more from people we've talked to on here that were in these super successful groups. You can't get tunnel visioned onto small chunk, because the reality is the performance is everything. You've got to be able to do it comfortably all the way through. I know Dan said in 2011 at Cavies, they did a million run-throughs. I'm pretty sure that's just like a Mike McIntosh thing. I think he did it. I've heard he did it when he was at Bluecoats before that, and now you're saying Rennick does a ton of them.
I think, eliminating the variables is super important. There are so many individuals in the line, and if you think about, maybe, having a drum tech, really dig into this one roll into a flam figure, in a movement, and just repping it over and over again, and pointing out different things that are wrong with it and different things that could go wrong with it, and then the add it to a phrase in rehearsal, and then you add more things to think about, and it's just this snowball effect where you get to a point where you apply it to the run, and it's like, and snare drummer's thinking about his heights. The snare drummer to his left is thinking about his touch, because there's so many options in terms of what the focus could be. And I think in the Rennick line, when I marched, it was like there was one focus. There was one thing to think about, and or maybe one or two things like timing and balance and blend. That was it, right? Like, we're not thinking about heights. We're not thinking about. I think it's all very simplified in a way that allows the performer to elevate that level of excellence, and not just like try to just get there and achieve it, but they're able to be comfortable in it and then elevate it to a point where it's almost expected and it feels second nature, because the approach to the mindset is simplified, and there aren't so many variables to think about when trying to produce this excellence. It's just fitting to the sound, and I think that's why they're so successful year in, year out, is because
I love it so much. I mean, over the years, I grew up with a very probably similar, training as you. I idolized the cadets, the early 90s cadets. My instructors were members of those ensembles, or with people that were in those ensembles, etc. And it was just kind of, at first, you got to chop out. You got to chop out. You got to get these chops up. You got to blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
And then as I got older and drummed more and different ensembles, and even through my teaching now, it's become more about, like, how does this feel to you? What does it sound like? I want you to listen to yourself play. What do you hear? Because heights are fine, I guess, but there's no way that Paul playing a roll on a set of quads at hypothetical quote unquote 3 inches is going to sound the exact same as me playing a roll at my 3 inches on a snare drum, and it's going to be balanced and blended. There's so many variables, like you're talking about, like the implement that you're playing with, the implement that you're playing on, the weight of my hands versus the weight of your hands is different. Like, you're never going to get it if we're both playing exactly 3 inches, however many millimeters off the head that is. It's not going to be balanced. It's not going to be blended. It's just not. So,
yeah, man. I think what we do as performers and as teachers is so about the experience. It's so experiential that the first thing that's tangible to you is the sound that you produce. When you hit the drum and the person next to you hits the drum and it's exactly at the same time, we all know that feeling, right? That almost absence of sound, that vacuum.
It's like a vacuum. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And, I think, like I said, trying to simplify the variables to a point where that's comfortable, and that's, I feel like that's also why, a lot of the audition process is by rote, and it really challenges your mentality, because he wants players that are teachable and that are smart and that can adapt and that can adjust certain really minor nuances about their sound to really maximize the program. And like I said, it's all working together, from the design to the instruction, the people that he puts in front of them, to the tuning of the drums. Everything works to elevate that level of excellence, and simplify the variables to a point where the performer is completely comfortable. And I really have taken that to heart in my approach to teaching and to writing. I feel like, but we're different people, and that's one thing I needed to learn is that I can't teach like Paul Rennick. I can't teach my group exactly like Paul teaches Vanguard, because those members aren't coming to me for that experience, right? They're coming to me for their own experience, their own identity, and to try to replicate this artificial Paul Rennick approach, may make parts of their playing cleaner, or their approach to musicianship better, but I think as far as the identity of the group, it's very about the people you have in front of you, and you have to adapt to that. So take elements of what you've learned from your groups and your experiences, and try to develop your own approach to education, your own approach to playing and to writing, because that's what's going to allow you to learn faster, rather than just trying to do it that way, and this is the only way, and if we don't do it this way, we're going to be dirty. Like, no, like you have to be open to new reactions, new experiences, and new members. Like, those members aren't coming to me for, like I said, like a Rennick experience. I
was just thinking that. I was like, man, like if you're not giving them a unique experience and they're just like, oh, Paul's just trying to give us like his diet Rennick, then like why would I go with Paul? I'll just go to Rennick. Like,
exactly.
But if you give them something unique and an experience that they really love, then they'll stay with you, whatever that is. So that makes sense for sure. One last question I had, I guess, about Vanguard or the Rennick, and this may be an abstract question too. When I watch a Rennick SCV Phantom quad line, there's a certain flow or smoothness around the drums that is a little bit different than other ensembles. What percentage of that would you say is the technique they teach you versus the percentage of a product of the arranging and the patterns?
Ooh, okay, that's a good question. I think as far as the teaching of that sort of fluidity, I think that was developed over time. Like, there's been a culture of quad drumming in Rennick groups that has strengthened from, the early VK days, where they had 7 quads, to Carolina Crown, where Nick Worth was the section leader. I don't know if you guys know of Nick Worth, but you definitely should.
He's from Texas, right?
I believe so. Or Portland. I think he lives out there. Seattle.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. Whatever. But he was instrumental in my upbringing, because all the rhythm of conscience stuff and the movement of mentality, quad method books, they really, that culture of efficiency of motion and connected, smooth sounds has kind of been developed over time and strengthened. And I think there's a certain respect for that tradition. And I think, the writing really lends itself to those connected, smooth motions. I think every note leads to the next. Like I said, every note has purpose. And in terms of what drums you're playing, when it's all about voice leading, it's all about, musical direction, like I said. So, the quads are tuned in a way that has like this feeling of resolve, like you lead a phrase on the 1, 2, 3, 3, 3, and 4. Like 4 is the resolve. And I think there are certain ways to write with the 4 pitches that have a sort of feel of a harmonic progression, right? So if you kind of do a groove on 3 or kind of play on the 3 and the 2, that is tuned to like a minor second and then like a minor sort of feel, right? Because normally the pitches are like a minor third between the bottom 2 drums. And then that bottom drum kind of feels like, or the 1 drum, they both feel like a tonic, like something that's stable, pitch wise. So
like you're hitting like the down or like going up the.
Yeah, everything is, and quads are so melodic that, you can mimic so many different melodies, and you can provide this sense of harmonic progression through how you orchestrate the arounds. And I think he does an excellent job of that. And I think he, there are certain times where he may allow one of the techs to maybe adjust something to make it a little bit more current and virtuosic, but, not in a way that I think his techs, it's never in a way that takes away from the musical intent, right? It's like I remember watching a video of interview for this YouTube video that just came out, this interview of Paul Rennick, and he said, he's like, yeah, you kind of get what I was trying to go for there, right? Like, everything that like, he writes has purpose, and the text or whoever's like icing up that quad feature knows exactly what he wanted, and may just adjust one or two things to kind of bring out that fluidity, that kind of flash of the sweeps or crossovers or whatever. But I think it all comes down to musical direction and purpose, and using the pitches of the drums to develop that interest and maintain a certain level of like momentum in the music. And each drum, each pitch has a feeling to it, right? This certain feeling that it evokes. Like you think about everything played on the 2 drum, that's like the stock drum, and then like what it sounds like when you go 2 to 3, it's a smaller interval pitch wise, versus 2 to 4, which is a perfect fourth, and it has a lot more resolution. So like musically, you can use the pitches to have that feel of harmonic progression and really bring out a sense of direction, more so than just like, okay, what's a cool quad pattern,
Yeah.
Nice. So
that's
what
pretty
I'm basically,
I love it.
What I'm getting from this is I am way more musically ignorant than I thought I was. But that, I follow
the nuance.
Yeah, I know. I'm a math brained person, so like I'm all about like the regimentedness of rudimental drumming and like
dude,
playing the right heights and
so many snare drummers all over the place. Everybody I teach with are snare drummers. So anyone I talk to about this stuff is like, whoa, okay, cool, quads.
No, it's really cool. So I think let's move this to, so you did all the Vanguard stuff, and that was super interesting, first off, to hear just a deep dive. Some of the way you said some of that, I'm looking forward to editing this episode so I can re-listen to all this and get even more out of it. But so you said you went and taught for Tom Unks at the Cadets in 17, 18, 19. So that, to me, when I look at I marched for Tom a decade ago now, which is terrifying to say, but I look at a Rennick line and watch a video for 2 minutes, and then I go look at an Unks line, and there's a lot of differences. Obviously, Unks is more of that East Coast, hit the drum hard, like play aggressive and forceful, and like it's not a poundy over aggressive, but it's just a loud volume density of notes. And so can you kind of take a minute and just let's talk about your experience teaching for Tom, because obviously I've never done that. I've just marched for him for one summer, and then we'll go from there into kind of contrasting the differences between the two guys and how they approach the activity.
Totally. Yeah, it was cool being, kind of thrown into that situation. I ended up being able to teach the full battery a lot of that summer. And, even all the way towards the end, it was really, really rewarding to be able to teach alongside of him that summer, because he trusted me a lot to instruct the full percussion section, as well as even go into like writing the quad rounds. And I had a lot of influence on the instruction, the day-to-day instruction. I think I took like literally one day off that summer.
Oof, grinding it out.
Oh yeah, man, I loved it. It was like driving a Ferrari, like that first year of Unks is back. Those notes that we had to clean.
Oh, that book was
that's
awesome.
17, right?
Yeah, man, that
was a great show. Was that the Bernstein show? The Mass.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Andrew Kane.
Shout out. Marine. What up?
Like, dude, yeah. It was really, really awesome, man. That whole experience. I learned so much about just the process, trusting the process. And he's very targeted in his approach to rehearsal. Like he'll do a certain set amount of counts, and he'll add on a set, and he'll add on a set. And
it's fun. I'm glad you said that, because one of the big things, it's funny when you were talking about Rennick, about big run-throughs, massive chunks, and like Unks is like the polar opposite of that. Like I have nightmares still of blocks where he would come out with his shirt off, and literally the text would throw a tennis ball back and forth, and he would just run battery ensemble, and it was, all right, start one set. All right, reset, add a set, guys. Reset, add a set. Like, and he would do that until you're doing like 15 sets, and eventually the chunks get big, but it's very like little piece by little piece by little piece to build up to the big piece. And it's a very different kind of approach from what, if I've understood what you were saying about Paul earlier.
Yeah, I think there's more emphasis on building like proficiency through dexterity and through just getting more repetitions on it. You know, I think that's in its own merit that works and has worked for so many years. You know, but the activity is evolving, and he knows that. Unks knows that, and
for sure.
He writes differently and teaches differently, and like I said, he kind of let me teach a little bit more in 17 and 18, maybe a little less. I had a little bit more going on in my life during that summer and didn't just take one day off. I took more time off. And
I was healthy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was more involved with Caballeros and had to do like a bunch of design there with like the body work and all that stuff. So I did like a week or two with them and then with my high school and then went back and forth in 18. And then 19, man, it was really, really awesome teaching those quads again, like the same quad line from 2008.
All 5 came back, right?
All 5 came back.
That's nuts.
You know, dream. It's a dream team.
Yeah, man. Autonomous, completely, like ridiculous. But you know, I think that summer it was actually cool. I got to write a little bit more of the book. I was entrusted to kind of do a little bit of snare and bass stuff, along with like, you know, a blank slate of a quad feature and a bunch of stuff. And yeah, it was really awesome to be able to contribute to the design this past summer, or I guess 2 summers ago.
Yeah, 2 summers now.
I don't know what we call it yet. I don't know.
Is it?
It's all good.
The most recent season.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. 19. It was like me in that quad line. I was, I wasn't really teaching the full battery that much anymore. I was just doing the quads, and I think for me, like that summer, that 19 summer was really, really special to me, and just seeing how much those quads trusted me, and how much, how much meaning they brought to every rehearsal. And I think
they were nasty.
Yeah, dude, it was really
insane.
Fun. Thank you. But yeah, as far as like the differences between Tom and Paul, I think, I don't know if I'm the best person to answer that. But like I said, I think there's a little bit more of a micro detailing going on from Tom's perspective. But like I said, like the writing is completely different. So like how to clean an Unks book
is probably a lot different.
Exactly. It's so much different. You have to take the time to develop the technique and the heights and all that stuff. Like I said, like it's trusting the process and trusting the system that Tom has in his head. I
think that's probably just too, like, although Paul was at Phantom, your experience was at Vanguard, and the difference of like what you would consider like traditional cadets music versus traditional Vanguard music is also so different. So the requirements of an arrangement standpoint are going to be naturally much different. I mean, a lot of cadets music historically has been like just kind of like run and gun, like nose to the grindstone. Meanwhile, Vanguard is doing ballets and this and like Shostakovich. I mean, it's just different.
Yeah, I think Tom does a good job of being musical, in a full ensemble context, but I think there is a lot more focus of like the technical, the mechanical side of it, like what the rudiments are, how the rhythm fits into the phrase, and the density of notes is a lot more physical. He talks a lot about that physical nature of it, the energy you need.
Yeah.
Yep. So
he said that on here with us. He's like, "Yeah, I just want to like kick him in the teeth." Like,
I want the music to hit the audience.
And I think Paul is very clever in how he generates those emotions. It's not just like, that both of them are very effective. One's like just in your face. Here's the idea. It's either good or bad, and the other is like kind of like, all right, I'm gonna make you think about this. I'm gonna make you appreciate it a little bit more in depth. And I think both of them have their merit, and that's why they're both very much
Hall of
Famers, man. Yeah,
right? Like they have their style and they stick to it, and I respect that. I really do. And I look up to that. I learned very much how to structured rehearsal from Tom. I think just how to increase their dexterity and their marching and maneuvering while playing this stuff, I think is very apparent in how Tom builds the line, do a lot of like check patterns and stuff. And it's a very technical, physical process versus the musical mentality. And it's, you can see it in the product, you can see what's effective about both and what's successful and what's maybe not so successful. And I think it all comes into fruition in how the program is set, how the design is set first and foremost, how the pedagogy and the teaching supports that, and how, it all kind of comes together in the end. I think it's really cool to see how both of them are doing it, this stage in the game right now.
Interesting.
I also think that you nailed that question.
Yes,
so,
I think that's going to be. I'm definitely going to clip that whole phrase and make it a clip video on YouTube because it's
great,
extremely well said. I have one more drum corps related question, kind of like a not satirical, but like kind of joke question. But do you think Rennick is ever going to bite the bullet and start doing all the body that the rest of the groups do now?
Well, I think that's one.
Maybe not until he has to.
Yeah, I mean, he's won 4 years in a row, so does he need to?
But I remember hearing a story of like Phantom 08. Like they were winning drums. San Antonio Regional comes around, and they're like 4th or 5th. And they're like, why? Like, what the heck happened? And it's like, oh, it's because this group is doing body. So he literally put like a plie, like lift the left foot, come back down, step off, and boom, they have the body, and they win, right? So
he does like the minimal amount you can, like the very minimal.
The one thing I do enjoy about how he uses the choreography is it's very specific to the musical phrase, and it's I think it might not be as
technically difficult,
but it's specific to that show, Some stuff in the 18 show was really, was musically appropriate. That had a little like kind of, I don't even know how to describe it, right? It's like, if you think about how, like what, Crown BD do versus what Vanguard does, there's, like I said, there's so much more emphasis on the musical integrity that, anything that comes in the way of that is going to be, is going to take away from that experience that he wants to generate. So I think
it's
the body
it's proof that you just don't need it right now.
Yeah, if he's won 4 years in a row,
he respects the progression of the activity. So he will find those moments, those feature moments. You see those subsection moments where there is body, right, and it's either split in the way the parts split, or has a certain flow and movement that emulates the phrase of the music, right? But it's not like a contrived, but like a sequence of body that makes the part like much harder, right? It just makes it a lot better to express yourself appropriately musically because it doesn't get in the way. I think some groups are doing a really good job of that, but still like going the step further and progressing that level of choreography.
And some groups are doing way too much.
Exactly. Some groups are just putting all their chips into that hand, and it's taking away from that experience. It's taking away from the clarity and the transparency. But it's effective in its own right. It's cool and it's intriguing, and visually it may add to the program more so that their effect score goes up. Like I think of Crossman 19. They did all that tribal stuff.
I was just thinking.
It was cool to see how it all came together in the show. It was like it added a lot, and like the beast stuff for Crown too. I think all of that expressive kind of movement that they did really added and enhanced that idea of the beast. So it can really do a lot for the effect of the program and the music. I think Paul Rennick respects that progression. But I don't think he'll ever get to the point where it gets in the way of the integrity of the music.
They're probably not going to do the moonwalk, that's for sure.
No.
The moonwalk, dude, that was crazy. It
was sick, but I was like, that is hard.
Yeah, I don't play by that drum line, BD.
Well, before we we've been going for about an hour. Before we wrap this up, we have to ask about a couple things that Evan found that I just have to know how it ended up happening. The first, did you play snare drum for a Victoria's Secret fashion show? Or like some...
Okay, so 2013, like I said, I was the director and arranger of the Rutgers Drumline. And I guess the band director's wife had a lot of connections in the city. And they would, Rutgers was the closest state college marching band. So we actually got a lot of gigs through that. And they needed a drum line for the Victoria's Secret fashion show in 2013. So
I guess.
They
twist my arm.
Dude, it was, what was the band? I forget the band. Oh, man. Who was the band? Fuck.
Hold on. I'll Google it real quick.
All right.
2013.
While he's Googling that, the other thing.
No, yeah, but I'll speak to that point for a second. I think I actually designed that stuff. So like they, I don't know if it was Panic at the Disco or one band basically had a song that was really popular and they wanted a drumline militaristic feel to it. And I wrote this thing and we rehearsed it and we showed up to the gig and it was like completely not going to work. The was like way too tiny. And we basically went like downstairs and redesigned the whole thing on the fly. Just took like 2 bars of this theme and just made it fit. And I was actually part of that drum line. So like I wrote it and designed it with the guy, but then I was a snare drummer in it. So
was it Fallout Boy?
It was Fallout Boy. Yeah. Right. It was Fallout Boy. And I also met Taylor Swift. It was like kind of absurd. Like, and like it was like a small college drum line, but we were dressed in this like British military garb and we had like the makeup done and all the nine. And, it was kind of crazy that, we had this whole thing designed, but then had to like scrap it all and just rewrite something that
audible.
Yeah, complete audible. But that was that was a fun experience, man. Fallout Boy was like literally behind us jamming, and we had to like do this like march out, play, turn, back stick on each other's drums, turn, back out, you're done. And you can actually see it for like the first like 3 seconds if you like Google or
I'm gonna YouTube it.
I was going to say when we're done here, I'm going to YouTube this.
Just to watch you, Paul, nothing else.
It was like, thank you. It was like this 45-second minute thing that we were all stressing about, but like literally was not shown at all on the final product. Like, it was more for like the people, the bigwigs in the audience there.
You were there.
Yeah, that was a hype.
It happened. Cool. All right, Evan. What was the other really cool thing you found?
The other thing it said that you played on the Wu-Tang album, Wu-Tang Clan, Wu-Tang.
40th
Street Black.
And it was the same kind of deal, like the Rutgers connection. And, I met RZA and
dude, that
it was like William Wells. We went into Electric Lady Studios. We got paid to, play this really simple chart. It was one, ta-uz, ta-uz, digga-da, ta-uz, da-ku. And it was written by this like tuba player. So we literally like played it, and then one person like just played the whole thing over like on a drum set snare, and then we all like there's like this like chorus at the end. We will fight, something. We all sang like in this, so I have like vocal credit and a drum credit on this chart.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that was cool too, man. That was all those Rutgers gigs were super fun, man. Like we did this like news, Good Morning America kind of thing. It was like
you didn't get hit by an axe, did you?
No. Oh my gosh, the ignorance, man.
Is there something that I've missed? What happened?
Dude, Jeff Prosper got hit by an axe on like Good Morning America or something, or Today Show. Was it Today Show? I don't know.
I think that does ring a bell now that you say
he
that.
got hit by it. I think there's still like a lawsuit going out or something about it.
I am just.
What was the axe from?
They had like this target practice thing like pointed at the 3 Hellcat drummers. Like, how stupid could you get?
I mean, the dude on one of the, I guess the host or whatever, it was kind of like a battle axe thing, but he went to throw it and he threw it over the target and it hit like Prosper in the arm.
Oh my God.
Not okay, man.
Drummers need those.
Thankfully, none of those experiences. No.
Yeah.
Fair. Oh man. Well, this has been awesome.
Sick.
You got anything else you guys want to talk about? Bueller, crickets, chirp.
I don't know. You got anything new coming up? I know you were supposed to be. I know you're with GMU now. We're supposed to be on tour with Crown. Any other new, exciting adventures headed your way?
Well, I think as far as that, the Crown and GMU stuff, all the virtual stuff is really fun to just find that sense of community and engagement again. I'm doing this 8-part instructional series with GMU, this off-season program, this kind of curriculum thing. I've been recording that. There's 8 of those, and doing some personal videos, some personal lessons, and maybe some tuning stuff. But same with Crown, we're kind of doing the same thing where we're doing these breakdowns, these videos, right now it's just trying to find that sense of community and that connection, but yeah, that's right now. I'm really just looking forward to being able to adapt to this whole situation and be a part of the activity again.
For
whenever
sure.
that comes back.
I know you wrote some concert snare solos, right? The Rutgers solos.
Yeah, man.
Any more of that you're getting?
Definitely check that stuff out. Joseph Tompkins, he was my teacher at Rutgers. He composed these French American rudimental solos that are a blend of French and American snare drumming, and that was my compositional influence. So did a lot of that stuff, and
I saw they were actually on the playlist for Texas.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Texas Level 1. I saw that on the JW Pepper site. I was like, oh, nice.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's been fun to work around that challenge of composing for a different genre. Making singular pitch sound melodic and musical, I think is really cool.
I love the addition to technology with that stuff that's come about.
Yeah,
whether it's concert snare drum or any type of solo piece playing with a backing track or some other ambient sound or lo-fi music or whatever it is. I was like, man, this just enhances, I feel what you're able to hear from the composer's mind. It's I actually had all these other sounds in my head, but what I was writing for was a snare drum, so now I can actually allow you to hear what this other influence is.
Yeah, you should check out Stop Speaking. Do you know that solo by Andy?
I do not. Stop Speaking.
Yeah, Stop Speaking is a really cool music for snare drum and tape solo, where it's the old school Apple voice kind of Siri feel, and it's it's really, really cool to see how rhythmically it's supporting the tape, but yeah, I totally dig that stuff too, man. But
I'll have to check
thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it. This has been really fun to kind of reflect on all those great band memories that I'm hoping to happen again soon. But
yeah, all of
if
us are
nothing
hoping.
else, it's at least an opportunity for us to all three just kind of talk, some shop, and be oh, there's other people out there.
They do exist.
No, but I do appreciate it, man.
No, it's been great. But let's close this out. So thanks everyone for sticking around, listening to this episode. We appreciate you as a part of our audience. Hit subscribe on YouTube once again. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Share it. That is the biggest way you can support us, is share the content that you like with anybody else on your social network that you think might enjoy it. Subscribe on the podcast services, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, Facebook, Instagram for updates, patreon.com/aged-out-podcast for financial support. Once again, check out LoneStarPercussion.com. Use the code AGEDOUT to save $10 on any order of $50 or more. Get some sticks. Get that pad you've been eyeing for a while. Whatever you need, cymbal, drum heads, they'll hook you up. And we'll see everybody next time.
Peace.